Community Newspapers Live. I'm your guest host, Michael Moot. I'm the Public Information Officer for Miami-Dade County's Mosquito Control Division. I have the pleasure of hosting also today with the Division Director, Dr. William Petrie, and we have Michelle Hebrado, one of our laboratory technicians with us today. Hello.
Good morning, Michael.
Thanks for taking the ride in the county vehicle over here with me.
Good morning to everyone that's watching, listening. And I should say that this is an unusual show because Michael Moot is our host today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Standing in for Michael Miller.
This is my Alexander Haig moment. I'm in charge now. We'll miss Michael Miller, but unfortunately he's been called away on assignment. So we're here today to talk about, surprise, surprise, mosquitoes. And we have experienced a good amount of rainfall in the last couple of weeks, Doc. So I'll get right into the first question. What effect did these torrential rains have on our mosquito populations?
Well, Michael, as expected, I mean, that was a lot of rain. That was an unusual amount of rain, as we all know. But yes, as anticipated, that rainfall did bring off a lot of mosquitoes, lots of different kinds of mosquitoes and lots of high numbers. In conversation previously, Michelle, with Michael, I have said that sometimes it can happen where you get a lot of a deluge or a hurricane tropical storm, and you can be surprised that we don't get the massive mosquito problem.
Right. Why would that be, Doc?
They can be washed out. The larvae can be swept out, or the eggs can be washed out. If that happened in this occasion, it only happened in patches. It may have happened but generally speaking, yeah, we saw a major increase in the numbers. And I think Michelle, who one of our lab technicians who counts and who identifies the mosquitoes, you would have seen an increase in the numbers of mosquitoes.
Correct. Yes, after the heavy rain, we totally observe like an increase in mosquitoes.
Yeah. So Michelle, why don't you tell us what the day-to-day is like for you at Mosquito Control? What is it you do?
Our daily task as laboratory technicians in our mosquito control department is that we do quality controls of our equipment that we have in our laboratory, where we check our -80 freezers and we take the daily temperatures of those freezers, because that's where we keep their specimens that we want to keep refrigerated there for testing, as well as we do larvae identification, as we have. I have bring some samples here.
We have some larvae with us. Yes, for those of you watching at home or watching this replay, you're looking at what a mosquito larvae looks like. So
Correct. So we can see here. This is like the pupa.
Okay, the ones that look like a comma, like a punctuation mark, are the pupae, and the ones that are wiggling around.
Correct, and the ones wiggling around, that's the larva. That's like the first stage where the mosquito is starting to grow, and then it becomes the pupa, which is like the roundish that you can see there in the screen.
Okay, there it is to the bottom left. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you see these sorts of creatures in your backyard, get rid of them, because what that means is that you're actually breeding mosquitoes and you're actually contributing to the mosquito populations. So that's part of the advice that we give about drain and cover. That's the drain part. Drain standing water and eliminate these little buggers.
Correct. Well, when we open our bag, what we do in our laboratory notebook, we will write the identification of the specimens of the larvae bags that we receive from the inspectors that have collected the larva samples. And then we put our specimens in our Petri glass dish, and then we numb the larvae with alcohol. So like that, they stop the movement, and we are able to identify the larvae of the different types of species that we acquired from the larvae. Once we finish identifying the larvae, we will record that into our laboratory notebook, and then we will enter this information in our Excel spreadsheet in the computer system. Other duties that we have is that we have to have a control of our inventory of everything that we use in the daily basis in our laboratory. as well as we check in a daily basis the traps, the collection traps that the environmental techs uses to set up to collect the mosquitoes. If they're damaged, we will repair them, as well as we create new labels with, if we have like an address change, we need to change that information.
It sounds like quite a lot.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So
So,
if I could just add to that, Michael, the new host, that Michelle is actually being, she, she's not fully complimenting herself. The lab technicians do an extremely difficult job. Identifying mosquitoes is a skill. It takes quite a long time to learn. It's difficult. It needs a lot of patience. Identifying mosquito larvae, like as we have here in this little dish, is very difficult. And the main part of the job that Michelle does for us is identifying the adult mosquitoes that come in the traps, as Michelle mentioned, because that information is what then drives our operations. It
I
lets
see.
us know what Michelle and the other lab techs do in identifying the trap catches is give us the numbers of mosquitoes and the types of mosquitoes and the
Yes.
locations.
yeah, no, that's a fair point. We're data driven. So,
Yeah,
so tell me,
absolutely.
Doc, what is the species that is of most concern here in Miami-Dade County?
I think the species that is of most concern to us, I think without a doubt, is the dengue mosquito or the Zika mosquito. Aedes aegypti is its scientific name, but historically known as the yellow fever mosquito. So it transmits all these diseases: Zika, dengue, yellow fever, chikungunya, and it's common and abundant throughout Miami-Dade.
And it's also an aggressive biter.
It's
right?
an aggressive biter. It prefers to bite humans. In fact, almost predominantly will bite humans. So it also breeds only around humans in human habitation. It doesn't breed in the mangroves or in the bush or in the field.
a container breeder.
It's
right?
a container breeder. They call it peri-domestic, just meant to be that it's always around human habitation, houses mainly, but businesses. So it's very common in residential areas, in people's yards, people's backyards, and it will breed indoors as well.
Right.
So that's probably because it's an important disease carrier, or disease vector is the proper term. That's one that's important for us, and also it, as you say, Michael, it's an aggressive biter.
Right, and this is around the time in the show where Michael Miller would recall the time where I stuck my hand in a cage to feed Aedes aegypti, and he'll
Yes.
still marvel. And I still marvel that I did something like that myself, but it was nothing. It was all for science. But so continuing the conversation, Bill. So we know that the populations have been elevated here in the county, but talk to me a little bit about residents' requests for inspections and the correlation or not correlation between mosquito trap counts. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we at Mosquito Control Division, we are motivated by requests, service requests from residents, as well as our own data. We can see where the mosquito populations need to be dealt with to have some control. But what residents can do is they can call 311 and request a service, an inspection from us. And it's a very good system, I must admit. I came here and found it here. I wasn't used to that sort of system, but it works extremely well, especially for a large jurisdiction like Miami. So people can call 311 and we will come out and do an inspection within 24 hours, usually within 48 at the most. So one of the things that we track, of course, is the number of service requests. How many requests are we getting on a
Right,
daily
I see those reports on a daily basis.
Right. And you will have seen the increase shortly after the rains.
Well, I saw that explosion. Yes.
However, it also should be noted that they're not exactly correlated with mosquito numbers, because these are requests. For example, you can often see straight after the rains, after the heavy rains, you may well see an increase in service requests. That's not because the mosquito numbers have gone up yet.
Right, because they technically haven't yet.
They haven't yet. It probably takes about a week.
Right.
It takes about a week for the mosquito numbers to to go up from those rains.
And that's because of the life cycle, right?
Yes, it takes about a week for these larvae to develop, the ones that we have here in the bowl here. Now, what can happen is that because of change in the weather, humidity, mosquitoes that were there will come out and other insects as well. So people may think there's an increase. It's not from that individual rainfall event. So the numbers of actual mosquitoes caught and identified in traps, sampling the population, isn't always correlated exactly with what people request. But you do see, I mean, you can see a broad, I wouldn't want to call it a correlation, but a relationship there.
Right, a relationship. Very
Call
good.
Call 311.
Okay, yeah. So, Doc, I'd prepared some questions for Michael to ask me, and it'd be kind of weird if I asked myself. So why don't you maybe choose one of these three here and let me take a stab at them.
So this is more Michael's stuff, and this is something that I, as a director of the division, I'm very fortunate to have Michael Moot and Monique Spence as our two public information officers. So Michael, this is my turn now.
Yes, Doc.
Yeah, because inquiring minds want to know. But actually, this is really useful stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think one of the important ones here is how can residents prevent mosquitoes from breeding near them? This really is key, especially for somewhere like Miami.
Yes, and in all the years that we've worked together, it's now we're going into year 6, which I'm really happy about that. And I like to tell anyone who listens that I've learned so much just by in my conversations with you. And one of the terms that really has stuck with me is source reduction, and that is a fancy way of saying just drain any standing water that's on your property. And I think I kind of hinted at that earlier in the webcast here. If you are not vigilant about the waters that are collecting on your property, it's going to inevitably attract these mosquitoes. They're going to lay eggs on or near the water, and within 7 to 10 days, you're going to have a new batch of mosquitoes flying around and trying to bite you. So one of the best ways to protect yourself from this happening is to just be vigilant. So stay vigilant. Check your yard, especially after a good amount of rainfall has come and gone. And for those of you out there who are using irrigation, once you run your sprinklers, after you've done that, make sure you take a good check around your yard. Make sure the water hasn't pooled. Don't check the usual sources like your pots and plants, but look for tree holes, look for holes, indentations in your yard, anything that could collect water. The rain gutters that maybe people don't really think about because they're kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Rain gutters.
Make sure you're checking those periodically so that they're not clogging, they're not pooling water in, and then thus they're not draining. So that's really the best way, Doc. Source reduction.
So you said source reduction, something of a fancy term.
Yep.
Just means get rid of the standing water that's
Yes.
there. Now, rain gutters you mentioned, is something that people tend to forget about. They can get blocked, they can get clogged, and they can breed mosquitoes. Someone also mentioned to us just before coming on air about flat roofs.
Yes.
That can also
They could accumulate water.
not as easy to inspect.
Right. We won't.
but-
We cannot
but something to keep in mind.
inspect.
And what I would say about this whole thing about source reduction and what can residents do to help themselves. In many cases in mosquito control, there is not a great deal residents can do. Mosquitoes breeding in pasture lands and fields, or the mosquitoes breeding in the mangrove swamps, that's a job for us. There's not a great deal residents can do about that. However, in this case, with these Aedes aegypti, the dengue, the Zika mosquito,
The container breeders.
the container breeders, we also have the sister species to that, which is the Asian tiger mosquito, which is also a disease carrier.
Aedes albopictus.
Aedes albopictus is the scientific name, Michael.
I learned that from watching
Thank
you. All right.
And we have that one as well. So not as abundant as Aedes aegypti, but they're both container breeders. So this is one case unusually, and this is why people perhaps don't pay attention as much as they might to
Right.
it. But this is a case unusually where people can actually do something to prevent mosquitoes breeding in their own yard and therefore around themselves and in the neighborhood.
Okay. I'm dying for you to ask me number 8, Doc.
So
Go on,
no-
shoot. That's a
So
good one.
number eight. I was going to go on to number eight. So
Oh, okay.
this is Michael's stuff too. What is Florida Mosquito Control Awareness Week all about?
Awareness Week. It seems like every day there's an awareness day, right? I forgot what today is, National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day or something. I'm not sure. But Florida's Mosquito Control Awareness Week is something that we celebrate every year around the third week of April, and it's more of an observation other than a celebration. We didn't shoot any fireworks or anything like that, but we did take the opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth through our social media channels about what it is, what mosquito control is, and what we do here at Miami-Dade County. That was it's kind of our little chance to shine, so to speak. And so that week we talked about pesticide resistance, which is a very important topic. We talked about a little bit about how mosquitoes affect pets, you know, what residents can do to protect themselves, what we do to mitigate, our surveillance program, that sort of thing. These topics that we don't usually get a chance to really get in depth about, we focused on. And we had a chance to do a Twitter chat. And speaking of Twitter and social media, I invite everyone to follow us at 305 Mosquito on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're continuously pushing our message of drain and cover and fight the bite through those channels. And on Mosquito Week, it was a good opportunity to interact with our residents. We had a Facebook Live where Monique interviewed you from our mosquito control headquarters, and then I had the pleasure of speaking to my counterpart out at the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District. Her name is Caroline Gongora. Really nice person. She does the same job that I do over here, but over there. So we had a chance to talk about our differences and our similarities, and it was a lot of fun. And we did that on Instagram Live.
I think that's a good point. That I mean, we did a Facebook Live. I did with Monique, yes, but this point of you communicating with someone in California, different mosquito problems, although similar in some ways, but everybody has their own specific situations and issues. So I think that's very useful that it was Florida Mosquito Control Awareness Week.
But it was also California Mosquito Control Awareness Week on the same time.
Okay.
So we seized on the opportunity. It was a good chat. It was a good time. So yeah, that was it for Awareness Week.
So I think we did answer this question already. The 311 inspection.
What, number 10?
Sorry, sorry, I was forgetting you were in charge, Michael.
I'm
Sorry.
Alexander Haig here.
Sorry.
Okay, let's throw it back to Michelle. So Michelle, how does the process of mosquito identification work? And I know you kind of got into it a little bit, but tell us. Let's say the environmental technician shows up. He's got a bag full of mosquitoes. What do you do then?
Yes. When the environmental techs bring us the mosquito traps, we have a list of the different locations where they collect the mosquitoes. So we check that they bring all the mosquitoes from that site. When we finish checking that they bring all the traps from the field, then we will put the mosquitoes in the freezer so we can numb them and put them to sleep.
So they're like a TV dinner, right? We put them away in a freezing temperature and no. Yeah, we humanely neutralize them. Right?
Correct, yes. We neutralize them so they can go to sleep. And then
Forever,
correct. And then after that, when they're numb, we can start our identification of the mosquitoes. The process is that we will take our trap, we will write our information of the traps, the location, the information where the trap came from, and write it in our laboratory notebook. When we do, after that, we put our specimens in the microscope and we start identifying the different species that we get into that trap. And write the number of mosquitoes that we obtain from those specimens.
Okay. So we catalog, we essentially we separate, we count, we catalog, and then what do we do with this information besides informing our treatments, Doc, Michelle? Do we share this in any?
Yes, we we put it into our laboratory notebook, but then we share it into the spreadsheet.
Right, our database.
Into our database, correct?
Yeah.
And then from there, basing the number of mosquitoes of the different species, it goes into upper management. So then they will take the next steps into the
our treatments.
into the treatments that they will start producing. to start killing that specific species of mosquitoes that have like a very huge amount.
Great. So no, a very, very important role.
So again, like as I hinted at earlier on, Michelle has been somewhat modest because when you look down the microscope and you've got a mosquito under the microscope, so you've got to look for stripes, markings, perhaps on the legs, or typically on the abdomen. What are the markings underneath? What's the color? Often there may be markings on the actual proboscis, the the device that the mosquito uses. Actually, it's covered in a sheath. The needle. I'm looking for a normal word. There may be markings on that Michelle would look to identify the species. So it's a much more difficult job than Michelle is making out. How long, Michelle? How long did it take you to learn how to identify most of the adult mosquitoes?
The adult mosquitoes, I might say like 2 to 3 months because it's a very detail-oriented work, as you say, Dr. Petrie. It's very detail-oriented. You have to you have to zoom into the microscope to observe the different scales that the mosquito have. So like that, you can identify and start putting apart like, okay, this mosquito belongs to this species based on the different characteristics that we observe in detail, very
And
detail.
what happens too sometimes is the mosquitoes might not be in very good condition. They lose scales or they can't always go by the color. So that sometimes they're quite difficult to identify. And then identifying mosquito larvae, to me, is even harder, right? That's what, because you have to go through the book. You have to do it looking at a book as you're going through. And in fact, Michelle, why don't we put that other larva on there? We've got
Can we go to the mosquito cam, Andres? Thank you. We've got another little sample that we'd like to show our viewers.
This one won't move around because it's dead.
Whoa.
But it's a bit too big to fit on the screen.
That's what are we looking at?
This is ciliata.
The ciliata?
Yes.
So this species we're looking at here, it's so big we can't even get it on the whole thing on the camera.
Is it commonly found here in Miami-Dade County?
Oh, can you fix that again, Michelle? Sorry, I ruined it. So this is the genus is Saurophora. There are a bunch of mosquitoes.
Saurophora ciliata.
Saurophora ciliata is its full name. It's the largest mosquito, one of the biggest mosquitoes we have here. The adults from this were very impressive.
Yeah, I did see them.
They're huge.
No, perfect angle there.
There you go. Look at that. Good shot. So these are I wouldn't say common, but they certainly do occur in Miami-Dade County. They typically breed in fields, pasture lands, or out in the bush, and they do like to feed on cows and horses. So typically, Saurophora, you'll find them in fields with cows, but they will bite humans. And when they bite, you notice it.
You feel it.
You do feel it, Michael.
Where do we find this one exactly? Was that the Redlands?
Oh, well, this specimen was found in floated grass-shaded waters.
Okay.
And does it tell us where?
The location that they put was in the city of Hialeah.
Okay.
Oh, Hialeah.
Go.
Oh, yeah, Hialeah.
Famous Hialeah again.
Yeah, there are very little cows left in Hialeah, but I guess there's some pastures sprinkled here and there.
Right.
More so in Miami Lakes. But yeah, Hialeah, that's excellent. So, Doc, why don't you fill us in a little bit more on what the division does to keep tabs? Tell us a little bit more about our surveillance program. So we have the ID program, the ID part of it down pretty well.
So the identification of mosquitoes is critical. It's difficult. It's a skilled job. What we didn't mention, I just want to make one correction. We've been saying that our environmental technicians bring in
It's
the
a new
mosquito traps.
title, isn't
we
it?
have a new title. They're surveillance technicians.
Surveillance technicians.
As they
right.
should be. Mosquito control surveillance technicians. So yes, their job.
What do they do?
Their job is to, on a weekly basis, is to set mosquito traps around the county. About 320 of them, I believe, right?
Correct.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of traps. So it may not be as skilled requirement as identifying mosquitoes, but logistics, Michael. If you're putting out 320 traps in Miami-Dade County, you need vehicles, you need staff, you need people who know how to do the job, whether it's raining or hot sun or whatever. Those traps are set, they're baited with dry ice, which gives off carbon dioxide. So,
What does that mean to a mosquito?
The trap is designed that the carbon dioxide is designed to attract the mosquitoes because we give off carbon dioxide when we breathe.
That's it.
We give it out, and that's one of the things that mosquitoes are very good at. Queuing in, they can home in on a plume of carbon dioxide. So this is what attracts them to the trap. The trap is not, in this case, the trap is not a control device. We're not using the traps around the county to remove these mosquitoes from the pop so they're not a nuisance.
It's only to capture them.
Rather, it's sampling the population. So those traps are set with the bait in the bag, and it has a fan, and so it has to be set up correctly. And then the next day, that collection is brought. They go back to the traps to collect there's a little net bag that collects the mosquitoes. They're brought back to the laboratory the next day. So that's a 24-hour
Sample size.
sampling of wherever the location happens to be. Larval sampling is a lot more difficult. It's
hit or miss.
It's
right?
hit or miss. You're going to look areas that are flooded or you think may be flooded. But the surveillance system that we have now runs well. It's a lot of traps. But it's a big area that we have to cover. And then we also go by information from the field. Our inspectors, we have 26 inspectors in the field every day, as well as our surveillance technicians and other staff who go into the field who can bring back information to say, oh, it's flooded here. Or, for example, there was an area recently where we don't have a trap, but our biologist and our research manager found a species biting out there that we wouldn't have known otherwise from the traps. So yeah, the surveillance is key to what we do. That brings in all the mosquito samples, and Michelle and her colleagues can tell us what they are and how many there are of them.
Excellent, Doc. So we don't have much time left, so why don't you go ahead and ask me number 3 here?
Is this don't we have a trick question for you, Michael?
No trick questions.
Okay, so this is another one that I think that people don't pay enough attention to. And I know that you say it often enough, but it is another one, the same as source reduction. To me, it is one that does work. And what can residents do to protect themselves against mosquito bites?
Well, that's an excellent question because I wrote it myself. But honestly, no, seriously, it is the other part of our advice, our drain and cover advice. And so how you protect yourself is you cover yourself. You cover yourself with either protective clothing, and you make sure that it is loose-fitting clothing, because if it's tight, the mosquitoes will be able to bite through the fabric and get to you. But really, what works more than what works best, we think, is applying an EPA-registered mosquito repellent that has as an active ingredient either DEET, picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus if you're into more natural sorts of remedies, or the I believe you mentioned this before, or maybe off camera, the IR 3535, which is the brand, the ingredient that's present in the Skin So Soft brands,
right,
which is sold by Avon. So cover your skin. That is essentially it in a nutshell. And so on our way out, I would like to thank you viewers for joining us today. I'd like to thank Michael and Grant Miller for the opportunity to be here. We are the Miami-Dade County Mosquito Control Division. You can reach us by calling 311. You can go to our website at miamidade.gov/mosquito, or use one of a number of mobile apps that you can download and install for free for iPhone and Android. The one that I personally endorse more than others is the MDC Solid Waste app. That one not only gives you a chance to request a mosquito inspection of your home or business, but it also gives you access to a number of other different departmental services that are available through the Miami-Dade County's Solid Waste Management Department. So on behalf of Michael Miller, my name is Michael Mood. I'm your guest host. Thanks again for tuning. Dr. William Petrie, Michelle Hebrado. See you next time.
Thank you. And thanks, Michael, for being the host. And thank you to Michelle. And thanks to Michael Miller, wherever he is.
See you next time.